Baby surrounded by hungry wolves, miraculously saved by a mountain lion. Olivia ran desperately along the dirt road, her bare feet bleeding as she screamed her son's name. Ethan, her 1-year-old baby, had disappeared from the backyard less than an hour ago. That's when she heard the growling, not one but several. As she reached the clearing near the Blue Ridge National Park Reserve, her heart nearly stopped. There was Ethan, sitting on the hard-packed ground, surrounded by 5 wolves slowly closing in. Oblivious to the danger, the baby played with a handful of dirt while the hungry animals tightened their circle. "Ethan!" Olivia's cry echoed through the woods, but she couldn't move. One wrong step, and the wolves would attack. The animals were clearly malnourished. The months-long drought in the region had wiped out their natural prey. Olivia could see their ribs beneath their reddish fur, their wild eyes fixed on the easy meal they'd found. The largest wolf, seemingly the pack leader, took another step forward, its yellowed fangs bared, head lowered in attack position. Olivia's legs trembled. There was no time, no way to reach her son. Then a deep roar split the air. From the vegetation emerged the imposing figure of a mountain lion. The golden feline, its coat marked with black rosettes, positioned itself between the baby and the wolves. It was a full-grown male, easily weighing over 200 pounds, and its presence completely shifted the situation. The wolves instinctively backed away. Even as a group, they knew they were no match for the America's top predator. The mountain lion growled again, revealing fangs that could easily pierce any of their skulls. Olivia watched, frozen, as the big cat held its protective stance. Ethan, still unaware of the drama unfolding around him, stretched his chubby little hand toward the mountain lion, as if wanting to touch the big kitty. "No, Ethan, no," Olivia whispered, but her voice didn't reach her son. The mountain lion slowly turned its head, its yellow eyes meeting the baby's. For a moment that felt eternal. Predator and child stared at each other. Then, to Olivia's astonishment, the feline lowered its head and delicately sniffed Ethan's outstretched hand. The wolves used the distraction to retreat a few more steps, but didn't flee entirely. Hunger kept them nearby, waiting for an opportunity. The pack leader growled in defiance, but the mountain lion answered with an even fiercer roar, this time stepping threateningly toward the group. That was enough. The wolves turned and vanished into the woods, leaving only footprints in the dry earth behind. Olivia still couldn't move. The mountain lion remained there, less than a yard from Ethan. The baby, now fascinated by his new friend, clapped his hands and babbled incoherent sounds. "Please," Olivia finally managed to speak, her voice shaking. "Please don't hurt my son." The mountain lion turned to her, and for a moment Olivia swore she saw something beyond wild instinct in those eyes. Intelligence, maybe even compassion. The animal turned its back on the baby and began to walk away slowly, pausing once to glance over its shoulder, as if checking the child was safe. Only when the feline had completely disappeared into the brush did Olivia run to Ethan. She scooped him into her arms, tears streaming as she checked every inch of his plump little body for injuries. "Kitty," were the first words Ethan said, pointing where the mountain lion had vanished. "Pretty kitty." Olivia hugged her son tighter, her heart still racing. How had he gotten there? Their house was nearly a mile away. The questions multiplied in her mind, but at that moment, all that mattered was that Ethan was alive and unharmed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. The sound of breaking branches made her spin around quickly. Nathan, her husband, came running down the trail, his face twisted with worry. "Olivia, Ethan, thank God." He fell to his knees beside them, pulling his wife and son into a desperate embrace. "I've been looking everywhere for you. The gate was open and—" "Wolves," Olivia managed to say between sobs. "There were wolves, Nathan, and a mountain lion. A mountain lion saved our son." Nathan stared at her as if she'd lost her mind. "A mountain lion, Olivia, are you sure?" The shock— "I know what I saw," she interrupted, her voice growing stronger. "The wolves were about to attack. Ethan and the mountain lion appeared. It protected him, Nathan. It doesn't make sense, I know, but that's what happened. Nathan examined the ground around them. The tracks were there, unmistakable. Paw prints from wolves forming a semicircle. And yes, there they were, the larger, deeper prints of a big cat. My God, he murmured. It's true. Daddy. Ethan stretched his little arms toward his father, oblivious to the drama he'd just been part of. Woof, Kitty! Nathan picked up his son, still processing what Olivia had told him. We need to get back home and figure out how he got out. On the walk back, Olivia couldn't stop thinking about the mountain lion's gaze. There was something familiar in those yellow eyes, something beyond rational understanding. Why would a predator protect such easy prey? The Thompson family home stood on the edge of the small town of Pine Ridge, Colorado. It was a simple, but cozy house with a large backyard Nathan had carefully fenced in when Ethan started crawling. Or so he'd thought. Look at this. Nathan pointed to a hole in the fence, partially hidden by a clump of tall grass. This is how he got out. Olivia knelt to inspect it. The hole was small, just the right size for a determined toddler. But something was odd. The edges of the wood looked gnawed, as if an animal had worked to widen it. Nathan, she began, but was interrupted by the sound of a car pulling up. Mrs. Margaret, Nathan's mother, hurried out of the vehicle, her usually serene face filled with worry. At 65, she carried herself with elegant grace, her silver hair always impeccable, but now she was clearly shaken. I came as soon as Emily called. She said Ethan was missing. She stopped short when she saw her grandson in his father's arms. Thank heavens. What happened? As Nathan explained the situation to his mother, Olivia watched Ethan. The baby seemed perfectly normal, playing with Mrs. Margaret's necklace like he always did, but something bothered her. Over the past few days, she'd noticed strange behaviors. Ethan would stare into the woods for hours, babbling as if talking to someone, and more than once she'd found him in the yard at dawn, even though she was sure she'd put him in his crib. A mountain lion protecting a baby? Mrs. Margaret shook her head in disbelief. Olivia, dear, are you sure? The stress. You think I'd make something like this up? Olivia snapped, sharper than she'd intended. The tracks are probably still there. Calm down, sweetheart. Mrs. Margaret touched her arm gently. I'm not doubting you. It's so extraordinary. In all my years living here, I've never heard of anything like it. Grandma. Ethan reached for his grandmother, who immediately took him into her arms. My prince. Mrs. Margaret cuddled him close. What a scare you gave us. Emily arrived minutes later, out of breath. Olivia's younger sister worked as a teacher at the local school and had dropped everything when she heard about her nephew's disappearance. Olivia, she hugged her sister tightly. When I didn't find you at home, I panicked. I called everyone. It's all right now, Olivia returned the embrace, feeling the tremors still coursing through her sister's body. Ethan is safe. As the family gathered in the living room, trying to process the day's events, no one noticed the figure watching them from the edge of the woods. Yellow eyes gleamed among the foliage, tracking every movement in the house. The mountain lion lingered there for long minutes before silently vanishing into the shadows. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. Lying beside Nathan, who snored softly, she relived every second of the encounter. The desperation of seeing the wolves circling Ethan, the simultaneous relief and terror when the mountain lion appeared. And most of all, that moment when the big cat sniffed her son's hand with impossible gentleness. A soft noise made her sit up. It came from Ethan's room. Heart racing, she rushed in, afraid of finding the crib empty again. But Ethan was there, sitting up, his wide eyes fixed on the window. Kitty, he murmured, pointing outside. Olivia cautiously approached the window. Her blood ran cold. There she was, the mountain lion seated in the yard, staring straight into Ethan's room. Under the moonlight, her golden coat looked almost silver. Nathan, she whispered, not taking her eyes off the animal. Nathan, wake up! Her husband appeared sleepily in the doorway. What is it? Look. Olivia pointed to the window. Nathan stepped closer and held his breath. Is it the same one? I'm sure it is, Olivia said. pulling Ethan protectively against her. "What does she want?" As if hearing the question, the mountain lion rose and began pacing slowly across the yard. She stopped by the hole in the fence, sniffed, then looked back at the window. "Is she showing us the hole?" Nathan frowned. "That's crazy." The mountain lion lingered a moment longer, then leaped gracefully over the fence and disappeared into the darkness. "We need to talk to someone about this," Olivia finally said. "An expert. This isn't normal." "Dr. Michael," Nathan suggested. "The vet at the reserve. If anyone can help us understand, it's him." The next morning, the Thompson family sat in the makeshift office of Dr. Michael Stevens on the edge of the wildlife reserve. The vet, a man in his 40s with a perpetually weary air, listened intently as Olivia and Nathan recounted the events. "Fascinating," he murmured, examining the photos of the paw prints Nathan had taken. "Definitely from an adult mountain lion, and you say she protected the child." "Not just protected," Olivia emphasized. "She came back. She was in our yard last night." Dr. Michael leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "In my 20 years studying these animals, I've never seen behavior like this. Mountain lions are solitary and territorial. They avoid human contact at all costs." "So how do you explain it?" Nathan asked. "I can't," the vet admitted. "But for the past few months, we've noticed atypical behavior in some of the reserve's animals. The prolonged drought is affecting the entire ecosystem. The animals are being forced to adapt in ways we've never seen." "Are you saying the drought made the mountain lion protect my son?" Olivia couldn't hide her skepticism. "Not exactly." Dr. Michael stood and walked to a map on the wall. "See, your house is here, on the edge of the reserve's buffer zone. Over the past few months, we've had multiple reports of animals approaching inhabited areas. Competition for resources is forcing territorial shifts." "But that doesn't explain the protective behavior," Nathan insisted. "No, it doesn't explain it," the veterinarian agreed. "But there's something you need to know. 3 months ago, we rescued an injured female mountain lion. She had been attacked by illegal hunters and lost her cubs. We managed to save her and released her about a month ago." "You think it could be her?" Olivia felt a shiver run down her spine. "It's possible. Trauma can cause significant behavioral changes in animals. If she lost her cubs and somehow—" He paused, choosing his words. "Well, it's just a theory. But she may have developed some kind of displaced maternal instinct." "Are you saying she sees Ethan as a cub?" Nathan sounded skeptical. "Like I said, it's just a theory." Dr. Michael sat back down. "But it would explain the protective behavior and the nighttime visits. She might be watching over him from a distance." Olivia held Ethan tighter. The idea was both comforting and terrifying. "What should we do?" she asked. "For now, reinforce the house's security. Fix the fence, install screens on the windows, and keep me informed of any new sightings. I'll increase monitoring in the area." During the drive home, the silence in the car was heavy. Ethan slept in his car seat, oblivious to the adult's worries. "Displaced maternal instinct," Olivia repeated the vet's words. "Do you believe it?" "I don't know what to believe," Nathan admitted. "But one thing's certain, we can't take any risks. I'll reinforce the entire fence today." Mrs. Margaret was waiting for them at home along with Emily. The two had prepared lunch and tried to maintain an air of normalcy, but the tension was palpable. "Well," Emily asked as soon as they walked in, "what did the vet say?" As Nathan explained, Olivia watched their reactions. Mrs. Margaret grew increasingly worried, while Emily wavered between fascination and fear. "Say, a mountain lion with a maternal instinct?" Mrs. Margaret shook her head. "What next? In my day, a wild animal was just that, a wild animal, period." "Times have changed, Mom," Nathan replied gently. "The world is changing. Animals have to adapt, too." "Adapting is one thing," she countered. "Adopting a human baby is something else entirely." "No one's saying she adopted him," Olivia cut in, irritated by Mrs. Margaret's tone. "Dr. Michael only suggested the trauma may have confused her instincts." "Dangerous confusion," Mrs. Margaret emphasized. "What if she decides she wants the baby back? What if she tries to take him?" The silence that followed was heavy. No one had considered that possibility. I'll install cameras, Nathan decided, all around the house. That way we can monitor any approach. In the weeks that followed, the Thompson family's life became a routine of constant vigilance. Cameras were installed, the fence reinforced with steel mesh, and Ethan was never left alone for even a second. But the mountain lion didn't return. Olivia began to wonder if she had imagined it all. Maybe stress and fear had distorted her perception of events, but then she'd find Ethan standing by the window, murmuring "Kitty" and staring intently at the woods, and she knew he sensed the presence too. It was Emily who first noticed the footprints. Arriving early one Saturday morning to help with Ethan, she saw the fresh marks in the dew-dampened earth. "Olivia," she called from the doorway, "you need to see this." The footprints formed a perfect circle around the house. The mountain lion had walked methodically as if patrolling the perimeter. "She was here all night," Olivia murmured, following the trail. "Watching. Protecting," Emily corrected softly. "Look, the footprints all face outward, like she was keeping something away." Olivia shuddered. What could threaten your home that would require the protection of a mountain lion? The answer came that very night. Olivia woke to the sound of growls, not the deep growl of the mountain lion, but higher-pitched multiple sounds. Running to the window, she saw the wolves. The same pack, or what seemed to be it, was prowling the edges of the backyard. And there she was. The mountain lion positioned between the house and the wolves, her body tense and ready to attack. "Nathan," Olivia shook her husband, "they're back." Together they watched the silent standoff. The wolves tested the boundaries, advancing and retreating whenever the mountain lion bared her teeth. It was like a deadly dance under the moonlight. "Why did they come back?" Nathan whispered. "It makes no sense to risk facing a mountain lion. Unless—" Olivia had a terrible thought. "Unless they're desperate." Dr. Michael said the drought is getting worse. "If there's no prey, they see Ethan as food," Nathan finished, his face pale. The standoff lasted nearly an hour. Finally, the wolves retreated, disappearing into the darkness. The mountain lion remained on guard for a few more minutes before also vanishing into the woods. "We can't go on like this," Olivia said, her body trembling. "It's only a matter of time before—" "Before what?" Nathan hugged her. "The mountain lion is protecting him, Olivia. For some reason we don't understand. She chose him. And what if she changes her mind? What if one day she isn't here and the wolves come back?" Nathan had no answer. The next morning, Dr. Michael showed up unannounced. His usually calm face bore signs of worry. "We need to talk," he said as soon as Olivia opened the door. "May I come in?" Sitting in the living room with Ethan playing on the rug, the vet got straight to the point. "We analyzed the footage from the reserve's monitoring cameras. The mountain lion that's been visiting you, we confirmed it's the same one. We rescued. But there's more." He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. "She's thin, very thin. She's not hunting properly." "What does that mean?" Olivia asked, though she feared the answer. "It means she's using all her energy guarding this house. She's sacrificing herself to protect your son." The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan chose that moment to crawl to his mother, lifting his little arms to be picked up. "Kitty, Owie?" he asked in his childish voice, as if he'd understood the conversation. Olivia held him close, tears threatening to fall. "Yes. Sweetheart, the kitty is Owie. Is there anything we can do?" Nathan asked the vet. "This is an unprecedented situation," Dr. Michael admitted. "Interfering could make things worse. She's clearly formed some kind of bond with the child. If we try to capture or relocate her, she might become aggressive," Nathan finished. "Exactly. For now, she poses no danger. On the contrary, she's protecting you. But we don't know how long this will last." Mrs. Margaret, who had arrived during the conversation, couldn't hold back. "This is absurd. You're all talking as if it's normal to have a wild beast standing guard. What if she decides to come inside? What if she decides Ethan belongs to her?" "Mrs. Thompson," Dr. Michael addressed her calmly, "I understand your concerns. But right now, removing the mountain lion could leave the family vulnerable. To the wolves, it's a delicate situation." "Delicate?" Mrs. Margaret stood up indignant. "It's dangerous. My grandson is at the mercy of a wild animal. Mom, please, Nathan tried to calm her. No, Nathan, she continued. You're all enchanted by this romantic story of a protective animal, but the reality is, we have a predator circling, a child. Emily, who had come with Mrs. Margaret, tried to mediate. Mrs. Thompson, maybe we should consider all the facts before... What facts, Emily? The older woman turned to her. The fact that my grandson babbles kitty all day long. The fact that we can no longer live normally. The fact that she saved him, Olivia said firmly, hugging Ethan. If it weren't for her, the wolves would have... Her voice faltered. The reality of what had almost happened hit her with renewed force. I know, dear. Mrs. Margaret softened her tone. I know you're grateful, but gratitude shouldn't blind our judgment. We need to think about the future. Dr. Michael stood up. I'll increase surveillance in the area, and maybe we can supplement her food. Leave carcasses at the edge of the woods. If she's well fed, there'll be less risk. You're suggesting we feed the mountain lion? Mrs. Margaret looked horrified. I'm suggesting we maintain balance, the veterinarian replied, until we understand the situation better. After everyone left, Olivia and Nathan stayed silent, watching Ethan play. The baby seemed so normal, so oblivious to the drama surrounding him. What are we going to do? Olivia finally asked. We'll protect our son, Nathan answered, whether from the wolves, the mountain lion, or whatever else. But Olivia, he paused, we can't live in fear forever. That night, Olivia had a strange dream. She dreamed she was in the woods, running beside the mountain lion. She could smell the damp earth, hear the nighttime sounds of the forest, and somehow she understood what the mountain lion felt. A deep visceral pain from losing her cubs, a desperate need to protect, to not fail again. She woke up sweating, her heart racing. The bedroom window was open, a gentle breeze moving, the curtains, and there on the windowsill was a single muddy paw print. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the weeks that followed, a strange routine settled in. The mountain lion appeared every night, silently patrolling. Dr. Michael began leaving carcasses of small game at the forest's edge, and the cameras showed the big cat feeding before resuming her watch. The wolves also kept their presence, always testing, always waiting for an opportunity. The tension was constant, like living in a war zone where conflict could erupt at any moment. It was Emily who brought a different perspective. A biology teacher, she began researching similar cases around the world. Look at this, she said, showing an article on her tablet during Sunday dinner. In India, there are records of leopards protecting human children. In Africa, lionesses adopting cubs of other species. Those are exceptions, Mrs. Margaret argued, though with less conviction in her voice. Yes, they are, Emily agreed, but they show that animal behavior is more complex than we think, especially in situations of extreme environmental stress. Are you saying this is evolution? Nathan asked. I'm saying it might be adaptation, Emily explained. The animals that survive are the ones who can adjust to new realities. And our expansion into their habitat is an inescapable reality. Olivia listened quietly, watching Ethan in his high chair. He ate his mashed food calmly, occasionally murmuring, "Kitty," and glancing at the window. There's something else, Emily continued hesitantly. I found local accounts, old stories from the indigenous people of the region about guardian mountain lions. Superstitions, Mrs. Margaret dismissed. Maybe, Emily didn't let herself be discouraged. But the Navajo, who've lived here for centuries, have stories about mountain lions that choose to protect certain families. They call them spirit keepers. Emily, please, Olivia interjected. Let's not romanticize this. It's an animal confused by trauma, like Dr. Michael explained. I know, Emily nodded. I'm just saying there might be patterns we don't fully understand. Behaviors that science hasn't yet catalogued. The conversation was interrupted by a sound they all knew well, the distant growling of wolves. It was earlier than usual. The sun hadn't completely set yet. Nathan went to the window. They're getting bolder. And indeed they were. In the nights that followed, the wolves came closer and earlier, in greater numbers. The mountain lion responded, with constant presence, but Olivia could see the exhaustion in the animal. Even with supplemental feeding, keeping constant watch took its toll. It was on an especially hot afternoon that everything changed. Olivia had just put Ethan down for his nap and was organizing the kitchen when she heard the noise. Not the usual, growling but sounds of a struggle. Running to the window, she saw a sight that froze her. 2 wolves had managed to jump the fence. The mountain lion was there, but it was facing 3 others outside. It was a coordinated ambush. "Nathan!" she screamed, rushing to Ethan's room. The baby slept peacefully, unaware of the danger. Olivia scooped him up just as she heard the crash of the back door being forced open. Nathan came running with a broom handle. "Stay with Ethan! I'll try to scare them off." "No, it's too dangerous." But he was already outside. Olivia could hear the sounds of the struggle. Growls, shouts, the noise of furniture being knocked over. Clutching Ethan to her chest, she locked herself in the bathroom, the only room without windows. The baby stirred and began to whimper. "Shh, sweetheart," she whispered, trying to calm him while her own heart raced. "Stay quiet." The sounds of fighting seemed endless, but likely lasted only minutes. Then, silence. "Olivia?" Nathan's voice, breathless but alive. "You can come out, it's over." Her legs trembling, she unlocked the door. The house was a mess. Overturned furniture, claw marks on the walls. Nathan had a scratch on his arm but seemed otherwise fine. "The wolves?" she asked. "Gone." "The mountain lion?" He paused. "She fought like a demon. Never seen anything like it. Drove them all off, but..." He led her to the window. In the yard, the mountain lion lay collapsed, her golden fur streaked with blood. She breathed unevenly, her flank rising and falling with effort. "We need to call Dr. Michael," Olivia said urgently. "Already did. He's on his way." Ethan, now fully awake, peered out the window, his little face crumpling. "Kitty owie!" he cried. "Kitty owie, Mama." It was as if the child's crying stirred something in the wounded animal. With visible effort, she lifted her head, her yellow eyes searching for the sound. When she saw Ethan at the window, something shifted in her expression. Defying her injuries, she began dragging herself toward the house. "She wants to see him," Olivia murmured in understanding. "Nathan, she needs to know he's safe." "Olivia, we can't..." But Olivia was already moving, ignoring her husband's protests. She stepped out the front door with Ethan in her arms, slowly circling until she had a clear view of the mountain lion. The feline had stopped moving, conserving her strength. When she saw Olivia and Ethan approaching, a low sound, almost a purr, rose from her throat. "Not too close," Nathan warned, having followed his wife. Olivia stopped about 10 feet away, kneeling in the dirt. Ethan stretched out his little hand, just as he had during their first encounter. "Kitty," he said softly. "Kitty owie. Daddy fix?" The mountain lion's gaze remained fixed on the child. There was something deeply human in that look, relief perhaps, the certainty of having fulfilled her purpose. Dr. Michael arrived in record time with his team. He quickly assessed the situation, his professional demeanor not entirely masking his emotion. "Serious injuries, but not fatal," he announced after the initial examination. "We can save her, but we need to take her for immediate treatment." "Are you taking her away?" Olivia asked. "We have no choice. She needs surgery, antibiotics, intensive care." The veterinarian paused. "And then, well, we'll see. Clearly we can't just release her back. The bond she's formed..." As the team prepared the mountain lion for transport, Olivia noticed something. The wolves watched from a distance, keeping a respectful space. Even wounded and vulnerable, the mountain lion's presence still intimidated them. "They'll come back," Mrs. Margaret said. She had arrived with Emily, alerted by Nathan. "Without her here to protect..." "We'll figure it out," Nathan reassured her. "Strengthen security even more. Hire guards if needed." "Kitty go?" Ethan asked, watching the team place the sedated mountain lion into the transport cage. "Kitty's going to the doctor," Olivia explained, "to get better." "Come back?" Olivia exchanged a glance with Nathan. How do you explain such a complex situation to a 1-year-old? We don't know, sweetheart, she answered. Honestly, in the days that followed, the mountain lion's absence was palpable. Ethan grew restless, especially at night, constantly looking out the window. The wolves, as predicted, became bolder, approaching regularly despite the new security measures. Dr. Michael kept the family updated on her recovery progress. The mountain lion, whom the team had nicknamed Guardian, was responding well to treatment. But an ethical dilemma arose: what to do with her afterward. We can't release her back here, Dr. Michael explained during a visit. Her behavior has changed too much. It would be dangerous for her and potentially for you. What are the other options? Nathan asked. Transfer to a sanctuary, perhaps, or... He hesitated. There's the possibility of creating a special program, a semi-wild environment where she can live under supervision. But it would need support, funding. How much? Mrs. Margaret surprised everyone by asking. Mom, how much would it cost to create that space for her? The older woman insisted. That animal saved my grandson, twice. If there's a way to repay her... Dr. Michael blinked, surprised. Well, we'd need about 50,000 reais for the initial setup. Then monthly maintenance costs. I have some savings, Mrs. Margaret said firmly. And I know people who can help. That mountain lion deserves more than a cage for the rest of her life. Emily hugged the older woman spontaneously. Mrs. Margaret, it's the right thing, she cut in, uncomfortable with the emotion. Nothing more than that. While the adults discussed logistics, Olivia noticed changes in Ethan. He ate less, slept poorly, and had crying fits that nothing seemed to soothe. It was as if he felt his protector's absence. A week after the attack, Olivia made a decision. I want to take him to see her, she announced at dinner. Olivia and Nathan began. He needs to see her, Nathan. And maybe she needs to see him too. Only then will they both understand it's okay. Dr. Michael, when consulted, was thoughtful. It's irregular, he admitted. But given the unique circumstances, we can arrange a supervised visit. She's stable enough. On the scheduled day, the family went to the recovery center at the reserve. Ethan, who had been listless, showed signs of excitement as soon as they entered the facility, as if sensing her. The mountain lion was in a large enclosure, still bandaged but visibly better. When she saw the group approaching, she rose carefully. Kitty! Ethan exclaimed, clapping his hands. The mountain lion's reaction was immediate. Her ears pricked forward. Her tail swayed slightly. Behaviors Dr. Michael later explained were extremely unusual in adult mountain lions. Can we get closer? Olivia asked. Carefully, Dr. Michael allowed. I'll stay right beside you. Through the bars, the child and the mountain lion reunited. Ethan stretched out his little hand, and the mountain lion approached, allowing the tiny fingers to touch its fur. Good kitty, Ethan murmured. Strong kitty. The mountain lion let out that soft, almost purring sound they had heard before. For several minutes they stayed like this, the child whispering affectionate words, the feline accepting the touch with endless patience. Incredible, Dr. Michael whispered. I'm documenting this, but no one will believe it. When will she be able to move to the new enclosure? Mrs. Margaret asked. She had become surprisingly invested in the project. If everything goes well with construction in about a month, it'll be close enough for her to keep doing, well, whatever she thinks she needs to do, but safe for everyone. On the way back, Ethan slept peacefully for the first time in days. Olivia watched him in the rearview mirror, thinking about the strangeness of their lives. What's on your mind? Nathan asked. How we're going to explain this to him when he grows up, she replied. Oh yes, son, you had a pet mountain lion that protected you from wolves. Who's going to believe that? We have the footage, Nathan reminded her, and the scars to prove it. You know, Emily said from the back seat, maybe we don't need to explain. Maybe some things in life are meant to be lived, not understood. The following weeks were filled with intense preparation. The special enclosure project, named the Guardian Project, gained unexpected support. The story had spread through town, and donations began pouring in. From local businesses to environmental NGOs, everyone wanted to be involved. The enclosure was built in a strategic area, far enough for safety, close enough for the mountain lion to maintain her self-imposed watch. It included shelter, a feeding area, and even a small pond. It was a home worthy of a protector. The wolves still lingered occasionally, but the presence of security and the promise of the mountain lion's return kept them at bay. Ethan, knowing his kitty would be back soon, regained his appetite and joy. The day of the transfer was emotional. Half the town seemed to have come to watch, kept at a safe distance by the reserve team. When the transport cage opened and the mountain lion stepped out, now fully recovered, a collective sigh swept through the crowd. She explored the new territory methodically, marking boundaries, testing barriers. Then, as if she knew exactly where to look, she turned toward the Thompsons' house, invisible from there but clearly present in her mind. "She knows," Olivia murmured. "She knows where we are." That first night in her new home, the cameras showed the mountain lion going to the closest possible point to the house and lying down, her watchful eyes fixed in that direction. The Guardian had resumed her post. Life found a new normal. Ethan visited the mountain lion regularly, always supervised. The bond between them, instead of weakening with physical barriers, seemed to grow deeper. The child learned to speak by having conversations with a mountain lion, something linguists who later studied the case would find fascinating. Mrs. Margaret, once the fiercest critic, became the project's greatest advocate. She organized fundraisers, gave talks on conservation, and visited the Guardian almost as often as her grandson. "I was wrong," she admitted one afternoon, watching Ethan talk with the mountain lion. "I was so afraid of what was different that I almost missed the chance to witness a miracle." "It's not a miracle, Mom," Nathan said gently. "It's just life finding a way." "Maybe," she smiled, "but let me call it a miracle. At my age, we need to believe in a few extraordinary things." The first anniversary of the incident brought reflection. Dr. Michael published papers on the case, attracting international attention. Proposals for documentaries came regularly, all turned down by the family, who preferred to preserve some privacy. "What matters," Olivia said during the small gathering they organized to mark the occasion, "is that we all survived. And more than that, we learned." "Learned what?" Emily asked. "That the lines we draw between human and wild, between reason and instinct, are thinner than we think." Olivia looked at Ethan, now 2 years old, playing peacefully as the mountain lion watched him from the enclosure. That love and protection can come from the most unexpected places. The wolves had disappeared months ago, migrating to more distant territories. Without the pressure of extreme hunger, and with the mountain lion firmly established as the protector of the area, they had found other paths. "You know what's strangest?" Nathan said. "I miss them too. They were part of the story." "A necessary part," Dr. Michael, who had become a family friend, observed. "Without their threat, the Guardian might never have shown this behavior. It was the pressure that revealed something extraordinary. As Ethan grew, his relationship with the Guardian evolved. He learned about respect, about necessary distance, about how to love without possessing. The mountain lion, in turn, kept its watch, but with less intensity. It was as if it knew the human cub was growing, becoming more capable of protecting himself. One morning, Olivia found Ethan drawing. With the clumsy strokes of a 3-year-old, he had made a house, people, and a yellow figure with black spots. "What's this, sweetheart?" "Our family," he replied simply. "Mom, Dad, Grandma, Aunt Emily, and Guardian." Olivia felt tears in her eyes. To Ethan, there was nothing strange about it. The mountain lion was simply part of his extended family, as natural as any other member. "Will she stay forever?" Ethan suddenly asked. Olivia thought carefully about her answer. The Guardian was already old for a wild mountain lion. The years of stress had taken their toll. "She'll stay as long as she needs to," she finally replied. "And then she'll live forever in our memories and in our hearts." Ethan seemed satisfied with the answer and went back to his drawing. But nature had other plans. The Guardian, defying all expectations, thrived in the following years. Maybe it was the renewed purpose, maybe the constant care, but she remained strong and watchful. When Ethan started school, his story with the mountain lion was known to all. The children looked at him with admiration and a little envy. Who wouldn't want a guardian mountain lion? She's not mine, Ethan explained patiently, showing maturity beyond his years. She's free. She just chose to take care of me. The distinction was important. Dr. Michael had worked carefully with the family to ensure Ethan understood the wild nature of the guardian, respecting the necessary boundaries. Years passed. The story of the guardian mountain lion became a local legend, attracting researchers and tourists. The small town's economy benefited, and more importantly, awareness of conservation grew exponentially. Ethan, now 8, had become a little ambassador for conservation. He spoke in schools about the importance of protecting natural habitats, about how humans and animals could coexist. "The guardian taught me," he said with childlike seriousness, "that love doesn't have a fixed shape. It can come from where we least expect it." The mountain lion, now visibly older but still majestic, continued her routine. The visits were less frequent. Ethan was grown, busy with school and friends, but the bond remained. It was on a stormy afternoon that everything changed again. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Olivia was in the kitchen when she heard the crash. A lightning bolt had struck a tree near the guardian's enclosure, knocking down part of the fence. "Nathan," she shouted, "the guardian's fence." They ran outside into the pouring rain. The mountain lion stood motionless at the opening, free to leave after years of voluntary confinement. But it didn't move. She could escape. Nathan observed, amazed. "Return to the wild." "She won't." Ethan appeared behind them, completely drenched. "She chose to stay." And indeed, the guardian turned its back on the opening and walked calmly back to its shelter, lying down as if nothing had happened. "See?" Ethan smiled. "She's not trapped. She's home." The fence was repaired the next day, but something fundamental had changed. The confirmation that the guardian stayed by choice, not obligation, deepened the community's respect for her. Dr. Michael, analyzing the behavior, was astonished. "She redefined the concept of territory," he explained. "For her, territory isn't the physical space of the enclosure, but the closeness to you. It's revolutionary in terms of understanding animal behavior." More years passed. Ethan became a teenager, then a young man. He chose to study biology, inspired by his unique experience. The guardian, defying all longevity statistics for mountain lions, remained. "It's like she refuses to leave until she's sure you're truly safe," Olivia remarked when Ethan turned 18. "Mom, don't be superstitious," Ethan replied, though affectionately. He'd inherited his father's pragmatism, tempered by his mother's sensitivity. "It's not superstition," Mrs. Margaret, now over 80 but still active, interjected. "It's love, pure and simple. That mountain lion loves our boy, in her own way." Ethan's graduation in biology was a community event. The whole town seemed to have contributed to his education, proud of the mountain lion boy who'd become a scientist. In his graduation speech, Ethan surprised everyone. "I dedicate this achievement to the guardian," he said, emotional, "who taught me that nature isn't something to be dominated or feared, but understood and respected, who showed that even the most insurmountable barriers can be overcome by love." That night, Ethan visited the guardian. The mountain lion, now clearly aged, struggled to rise and greet him. "Hi, old friend," he said softly, kneeling by the fence. "I did it. Now I'll be able to help others like you." The mountain lion slowly approached, resting its head against the bars. Ethan reached out, stroking its now grayed fur. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." It was the last time they saw each other standing. The next morning, the guardian didn't appear at her usual lookout spot. Dr. Michael was called and found her lying peacefully in her shelter. She had passed during the night, seemingly without suffering. "It's as if she knew," Dr. Michael said, visibly moved. That her work was complete. The grief was communal. The whole town felt the loss of the guardian, who had become a symbol of something greater. the possibility of harmony between seemingly incompatible worlds. Ethan, though deeply saddened, showed the strength he'd learned from watching his protector. She lived 3 times longer than the average wild mountain lion, he said at the memorial they held. Not by chance, but by purpose. She had a mission, and she fulfilled it. Now it's up to us to carry on the legacy. The Guardian Project grew into an internationally renowned research and conservation center. Ethan, after completing his master's and doctorate, returned to lead it. Under her leadership, the center saved dozens of animals and educated thousands of people. Olivia and Nathan, now grandparents to 2 of Emily's children, often told the story of the Guardian. The kids listened with wide eyes, hardly believing it had really happened. "Is it true, Grandma?" little Sophia would ask. "Did Uncle Ethan really have a mountain lion that took care of him?" "True as can be," Olivia confirmed. "And do you know the most important lesson?" The children shook their heads. "That love knows no boundaries. It can bloom between the most different creatures, in the most unlikely circumstances. And when it does, it can change the world." Mrs. Margaret, who lived to see great-grandchildren, kept a framed photo of the Guardian in a place of honor in her living room. "People ask me if it's my cat," she'd say with a chuckle. "I tell them it's so much more than that, it's family." Years later, when Ethan won an international award for his work in conservation and animal behavior, he dedicated it once again to the Guardian. "It all started with a mountain lion who chose to love," he said in his speech, "who looked beyond the differences of species and recognized something universal, the need to protect the vulnerable. She taught me that true strength lies in compassion, and that sometimes the greatest miracles come disguised as impossible coincidences." The audience, made up of skeptical scientists from around the world, gave him a standing ovation. The story of the Guardian had become more than a scientific curiosity. It was proof that there were still mysteries in the world, connections that transcended purely rational understanding. Back in Pine Ridge, the Guardian's enclosure was preserved as a memorial. A simple plaque marked the spot. Here lived the Guardian, who proved love knows no species. School children visited regularly, learning about conservation, respect for nature, and the extraordinary story of the boy and his unlikely protector. "Professor Ethan," one student asked during a visit, "do you think there are other guardians out there?" Ethan smiled, the same smile he had as a child when talking about his little kitten. "I'm certain of it," he replied. "The world is full of extraordinary connections waiting to be discovered. We just have to be open to seeing them." That evening, as he closed the center, Ethan paused at the Guardian's memorial. The wind blew softly, carrying the sounds of the nearby woods. For a moment, he swore he heard a familiar growl in the distance. "Still watching over us, huh?" he murmured fondly. Some things never change. And perhaps it was true. In the years that followed, no predator ever threatened the area again. It was as if the Guardian's presence, even after her passing, still protected those she had chosen to love. Ethan married a veterinarian he met at a conference, someone who understood and respected his unique story. They had 2 children, and yes, both grew up visiting the Guardian's memorial, hearing the stories, learning about the legacy. "Dad, I wish I could have met her," his son Michael said at 7 years old. "You do," Ethan replied. "Every time. You choose to protect instead of ignore. Every time you look beyond appearances, every time you love unconditionally, you're meeting the Guardian. She lives in every unlikely act of compassion." Olivia, now with white hair but a youthful spirit, often sat on the bench they'd installed overlooking the old enclosure. "Sometimes I still see her," she confessed to Emily. "In the shadows, out of the corner of my eye. I know it's impossible, but..." "Who are we to say what's impossible?" Emily replied. "After everything we've been through." And it was true. The Thompson family had learned that the impossible was just a word for things we don't yet understand. The research center grew, becoming a global reference. Students came from all continents to learn about conservation and the unique case of the Guardian. Many arrived skeptical and left transformed. "You see, you need to understand," Ethan explained in his lectures. "The Guardian wasn't an anomaly, it was a possibility. proof that nature is infinitely more complex and adaptable than our models predict. He developed protocols to identify and protect animals that displayed similar behaviors. Several cases were documented worldwide, none as dramatic as the Guardian's, but equally significant. Nathan, retired but active, wrote a book about the experience. When the Wild Chooses Love became a bestseller, with profits going to the center. "Never thought I'd become a writer," he joked. But some stories demand to be told. The book helped spread the message. Letters arrived from everywhere, people sharing their own experiences with animals, moments of inexplicable connection. "Just look," Mrs. Margaret would say, reading the letters to her great-grandchildren. The Guardian opened the world's eyes, and perhaps that was the true legacy. Not just the protection of a baby, but the transformation of how an entire community, and eventually the world, viewed the relationship between humans and nature. In her final years, Mrs. Margaret made a surprising confession. "You know, I dreamed of her too," she said during a family dinner. The Guardian. "I dreamed we talked, that she explained why she chose Ethan." "And what did she say, Grandma?" asked her great-granddaughter. "That she recognized something pure in him." Mrs. Margaret smiled. Something she'd lost with her own cubs, an innocence worth protecting at all costs. "Do you really believe she thought that way?" Emily asked gently. "I believe love thinks," the elderly woman replied wisely, "whatever form it takes." When Mrs. Margaret passed at 93, Ethan made sure to honor her in the dedication of the expanded center. To Margaret Thompson, who taught us it's never too late to change your mind and embrace the extraordinary. The new wing included an educational program for seniors, recognizing that wisdom and openness to new things have no age. Time moved on. Emily became the region's director of environmental education. Ethan's children pursued diverse careers, but all carried environmental awareness as their legacy. Olivia and Nathan, now in their golden years, remained in the same house where it all began. The fence had been removed years ago, no longer needed, but they kept the backyard as it always was, a small tribute. "You know what amazes me most?" Olivia said one quiet afternoon, sipping tea with Nathan on the porch. "What?" "How one single creature changed so many lives, not just ours, but a whole community's, researchers worldwide, children not even born when it happened." "The butterfly effect," Nathan agreed, "or in this case the mountain lion effect." They chuckled softly, comfortable in the silence of decades together. Then they saw it. At the edge of the property where the woods began, a shadow moved. For a brief moment, yellow eyes gleamed in the twilight. "Did you see?" Olivia began. "I did," Nathan confirmed. They stayed silent, watching, but the apparition didn't return. It could have been anything, a trick of the light, a passing mountain lion, the imagination of aging minds. But in their hearts they knew, some presences never truly leave. They linger in the places they loved, the lives they touched, the changes they inspired. That night, Ethan called. He was on an expedition in the Everglades, documenting unusual behaviors in local mountain lions. "Mom, Dad, you won't believe it. We found a female who adopted an orphaned bobcat cub. The locals say they've never seen anything like it." Olivia and Nathan exchanged a knowing glance. "Tell us everything," Olivia asked with a smile, as they listened to their son describe with scientific enthusiasm, tempered by genuine awe. They knew the cycle continued. The Guardian had opened a door, shown a possibility. Now others were walking through it. At the Guardian's memorial, now part of a larger educational complex, a new generation of children was learning the story. The details might fade with time, embellished by retelling, but the essence remained. A young guide, trained by Ethan, explained to a school group, "The Guardian taught us that nature isn't our enemy. It's our teacher, our partner, sometimes even our protector. But for that we must respect it, give it space, understand we're part of something greater." A little girl raised her hand. "But how did she know the baby needed protection?" The guide smiled. "That's the million-dollar question. Dr. Ethan says we may never fully know, and maybe that's for the best. Some mysteries remind us there's still magic in the world, and there was. In the ongoing research, the transformed lives, the conservation policies shaped by the story. The Guardian had become more than a mountain lion. She was a symbol of possibility. Years turned into decades. Ethan, nearing retirement, trained successors. The center had become an institution, but he ensured the original story was never forgotten. Remember, he told the young researchers, behind every piece of data, every statistic, there's a story. The Guardian was an impossible statistic. That became the most important story of my life. Olivia passed first at 82, peacefully in her sleep. Nathan followed months later, as if he couldn't imagine a world without her. Ethan, though devastated, found solace in continuing the work. They lived to see the impossible, he said at their joint memorial. And they taught us never to doubt the power of love, no matter where it comes from. The center created the Olivia and Nathan Thompson Award for research on interspecies bonds. Young scientists worldwide competed to document and understand extraordinary connections between different species. Emily, now the family matriarch, kept the traditions alive. Sunday dinners, stories for the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, visits to the memorial. The Guardian didn't just save Ethan, she'd say. She saved us all from the blindness of thinking we know everything about the world. And it was true. The scientific humility the experience had taught them permeated all the center's work. They observed, documented, protected, but always with the awareness that nature held secrets beyond human understanding. A famous filmmaker approached Ethan, wanting to make a movie about the story. On one condition, Ethan agreed: no sensationalism. The truth is extraordinary enough. The documentary, when released, moved millions, not through dramatization but through the simplicity of truth. Sometimes love transcends every imaginable barrier. In theaters worldwide, people wept at the real footage of The Guardian with young Ethan. The scene of her standing between him and the wolves became iconic. How is this possible? Was the most common question. It is possible, the film answered. And if this is possible, what else is? The impact was profound. Conservation policies were revised, funds redirected to research, but most importantly, hearts opened to the possibility of connection with the natural world. Ethan, now with hair as silver as the Guardian's in her later years, often walked through the memorial at dusk. It was his time for reflection, for connecting with the past. On one such walk, he found a young researcher crying on a bench. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. "It's just, I grew up hearing this story," she explained through tears. "My grandmother used to tell me about the Guardian. That's why I became a biologist. And now, being here, where it all happened..." Ethan sat beside her. "Do you know what the Guardian's favorite thing was?" The young woman shook her head. "The silence of dusk," he said. "When day meets night, when the world seems to pause." She would spend hours just watching, protecting. She found peace in that. They sat in silence together, watching the sun set. The moment the last ray disappeared, a sound echoed from the woods. A distant roar, almost a whisper in the wind. The young woman's eyes widened. "Was that?" "Probably just a regular mountain lion," Ethan smiled. "But I like to think it's a greeting, from the Guardian or her spiritual descendants. A reminder that the watch continues." In Ethan's later years, the center had saved hundreds. Fav animals educated millions of people and fundamentally changed how science viewed interspecies relationships. "My legacy," he would say. "No, hers. I was just the lucky baby she chose to protect." When Ethan passed at 78, he was found at the Guardian's memorial. He had apparently gone for his usual evening walk and sat on the bench to rest. He left this world gazing at the place where his protector had lived. His funeral became a national event. Scientists, conservationists, and ordinary people moved by the story came to pay their respects. But the most touching moment was when a wild mountain lion appeared at the edge of the woods during the ceremony. It stayed only for a few moments, watching the crowd with those unmistakable yellow eyes before silently disappearing. "Nature says goodbye too," someone murmured. The Guardian Center carried on, now led by one of Emily's daughters, keeping the mission alive. The story was told and retold, reaching new ears and new hearts each time. In a rural school, a teacher read Nathan's book to her students. "Teacher, did this really happen?" a boy asked. "It did," she confirmed. "And you know what's most beautiful? It's still happening. Every time we protect instead of destroy, every time we observe instead of ignore, every time we love instead of fear, the guardian lives." And so the story of the mountain lion who chose to protect a human baby became more than a memory. It became a call to action, a reminder that the extraordinary is always waiting, if only we open our eyes and hearts to see it. In the old enclosure, now a memorial garden, children planted trees. Each tree represented a life saved, a mind changed, a heart opened by the guardian's story. "Why do we plant trees here, Auntie?" a little girl asked. "Because the guardian protected the land," the educator explained. "And now we protect the land for her. It's a cycle of love and protection that never ends." The girl seemed to think about it, then smiled. "So the guardian is still protecting, just through us?" "Exactly," the educator replied, moved by the child's insight. "She taught us how. Now it's our turn." And it was true. In the transformed hearts, the changed policies, the lives saved, human and animal alike, the guardian's work continued. What began as an impossible encounter between predator and prey had become a global movement of compassion and conservation. In the final words of Ethan's journal, found after his passing, "The guardian gave me more than life. She gave me purpose. She showed that love knows no boundaries of species, that protection is a universal instinct, that the impossible is just what hasn't happened yet. If my life meant anything, it was to share this truth. And I know that somewhere, somehow, she still watches. Not just for me or my family, but for all who choose to see the world with eyes of possibility rather than limitation. That is the true legacy of the Guardian, the certainty that miracles happen every day. We just need to be ready to recognize them. And so, the story continues. In every unlikely act of kindness, in every unexpected connection, in every moment, when love transcends the boundaries of the possible, the Guardian lives. The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave your sincere words in the comments. Do you believe wild animals can form such deep bonds with humans? We'd love to read your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories.